Did she get robbed? Who the fuck robbed me? I don't have nothing to rob. They gonna steal my pussy? Take that. I ain't got no good beating in the head. I don't care. I have nothing to take.
Buckeye police telling us this is a domestic violence incident involving 3 generations of women from the same family.
The 911 call came in at exactly 4:13 p.m. on December 15, 2024. A grandmother's voice, strained and urgent, reported a violent fight between her daughter and granddaughter. But before the dispatcher could gather the full details, something went terribly wrong. The line went silent. Then came the sound that would shatter a family forever. A single gunshot echoing through the phone. When Buckeye police officers arrived at the quiet suburban home near Miller and Baseline Roads, they discovered a scene that would haunt this tight-knit Arizona community for months to come. 31-year-old Larkia Elliott, known to her 20,000 TikTok followers as Kia, lay motionless near a bedroom doorway, shot in the back. She was pronounced dead at the scene. And the person who pulled the trigger, her own 71-year-old grandmother, Debra Greene-Davis, sitting calmly in another room with a 9mm handgun nearby. This wasn't a random act of violence. This was a family destroyed from within, in a matter of minutes that would define the rest of their lives. This is the story of how a domestic argument became Buckeye's first homicide of 2024, and how 3 generations of women living under one roof reached a breaking point that nobody saw coming. Larkia LaShawn Elliott was born in Detroit, Michigan in 1993, but Arizona became her home when she moved there as a child. From the very beginning, she was different, bold, ambitious, the kind of person who refused to be contained by other people's expectations. She carried herself with a confidence that was magnetic, drawing people in with her infectious energy and unfiltered authenticity. Those who knew her described a woman of many talents and even more dreams. She wasn't content with just one path in life, she wanted it all. And for a while, it seemed like she might actually get it. By her early 20s, Larkia had already worn more professional hats than most people do in a lifetime. She worked as a preschool teacher, connecting with children in ways that seemed effortless. She served as a caregiver, showing the kind of patience and compassion that can't be taught. She worked as a mental health counselor, helping others navigate their darkest moments while quietly managing her own struggles. She also worked as a security specialist for Maricopa County, bringing the same dedication to every role she took on. But perhaps most significantly, from October 14, 2019 to August 14, 2020, she worked as a correctional officer for the Arizona Department of Corrections, Rehabilitation and Reentry at Lewis State Prison in Buckeye, the same city where her life would tragically end just a few years later. Her colleagues remembered her for her calm demeanor under pressure and her deep belief in second chances. She didn't just see inmates as criminals, she saw them as human beings capable of redemption. She had this way about her, one former colleague would later recall. Even in that environment, she brought light. She believed people could change, could grow. Maybe that's why what happened is so hard to understand. But Larkia's heart truly belonged to the digital world. While working these traditional jobs, she was quietly building something bigger, a brand, a voice, a platform that would allow her to reach thousands of people every day. On TikTok, she transformed into Kia, and the transformation was electric.
Bitch, how you got a problem with me? We don't know each other. That's how I know these bitches are broken or haters.
Her content wasn't polished or overly produced. It was raw, real, and utterly captivating. She talked about self-love in a way that felt genuine rather than preachy. She shared her journey through healing with a vulnerability that made strangers feel like friends. She celebrated Black womanhood with a pride and joy that was infectious. I would like to say during this time we should be coming together as a collective, and there will be no judgment upon any nation, she said in one of her videos, her eyes bright with hope and determination. We're going to be uplifting each other. Times will not be hard anymore. Her follower count grew steadily, climbing past 20,000 people who hung on her every word. They weren't just watching her content, they were investing in her journey. She was building something real, something meaningful. Behind the camera, Larkia was hustling in ways her followers could only imagine. She had an Etsy shop where she sold fashion and beauty products. She was developing her own jewelry line, spending hours perfecting designs that reflected her unique aesthetic. She experimented with DIY products, always looking for the next opportunity to turn creativity into cash flow. I just wanted to come on here and speak to you guys about the TikTok shop, she said in another video, her entrepreneurial spirit on full display. So those of you who are buying those funny keychains and would like to get them for a cheaper price where they originated from, they have them on AliExpress. She was even planning a podcast centered on healing and humor, two things she understood better than most. The concept was brilliant. Create a space where people could laugh while learning, where entertainment and enlightenment could coexist. Everything was falling into place. Her social media presence was growing. Brand opportunities were starting to materialize. She could see the finish line of her dream to transition into full-time content creation. She was so close to having everything she'd worked for. But behind all the success and momentum was a complicated reality that most of her followers never saw. Lakia lived with her mother, Tanisha, and her grandmother, Debra Greene-Davis, in a house where 3 generations of strong women tried to coexist under one roof. It should have been a blessing. 3 generations supporting each other, sharing resources, building something together. Instead, it became a powder keg waiting for a spark. Buckeye, Arizona seemed like the perfect place for this family to thrive. Known as one of the fastest-growing cities in America, it offered the kind of suburban charm and family-friendly atmosphere that drew people from across the country. The crime rates were remarkably low. Buckeye ranked as the 6th safest city in Arizona, with a violent crime rate of just 1.78 per 1,000 residents. It was the kind of place where neighbors knew each other's names, where children rode bikes in the streets without fear, where families gathered for block parties and holiday celebrations. The desert scenery was breathtaking, the mountain views spectacular, and there were endless opportunities for outdoor adventures. This was supposed to be their sanctuary, their safe space, their home. But inside the house near Miller and Baseline roads, tensions were building in ways that would prove impossible to contain. Debra Greene-Davis, at 71 years old, carried the weight of being the family matriarch. She had lived through decades of change, struggle, and survival. Like many women of her generation, she had firm beliefs about respect, authority, and the way families should operate. She believed in order, in hierarchy, in the idea that elders deserved deference. Tanisha, Lakia's mother, and a woman in her 50s, found herself caught between 2 worlds. She was trying to respect her mother while supporting her daughter. She was managing the household logistics, helping with finances, and serving as a caregiver for her aging mother. The stress of being the buffer between 2 strong personalities was enormous. And then there was Lakia, creative, opinionated, fiercely independent, and determined to live life on her own terms. She was building a brand based on authenticity and self-expression, values that sometimes clashed with the more traditional expectations of her elders. Friends who were close to the family described the living situation as hot and cold. One day, there would be genuine love and support. Lakia would post Mother's Day tributes filled with gratitude and joy. The 3 women would come together for family dinners and celebrations. But other days, the house felt suffocating. There were power struggles over everything from household rules to financial decisions. There were generational clashes about values, lifestyle choices, and what the future should look like. There were moments when the emotional strain became almost unbearable. It was a pressure cooker, and everyone living there could feel the temperature rising. December 15th, 2024, started like any other Sunday. There was nothing in the air that suggested this would be different from countless other days. The sun was shining over Buckeye, families were enjoying their weekend, and life was moving forward at its usual pace. But sometime that afternoon, something shifted inside the house near Miller and Baseline roads. An argument broke out between Lakia and her mother, Tanisha. The exact trigger remains unknown. It could have been anything: money, responsibilities. Words that had been building up for too long, finally spilling over into something bigger. What started as a disagreement in the living room quickly escalated into something more heated. Voices rose, emotions flared. The kind of fight that neighbors might hear through thin walls. The kind that makes everyone uncomfortable but seems manageable. From another room, Debra Greene-Davis listened to the argument growing louder and more intense. As the family matriarch, she had probably intervened in countless disputes over the years. She had likely seen her daughter and granddaughter clash before, but this time felt different. This time, something told her she needed to call for help. At 4:13 p.m., she picked up her phone and dialed 911. "I need help," she told the dispatcher, her voice strained with worry. "There's a fight between my daughter and granddaughter. It's getting violent." But as she was explaining the situation to the emergency operator, the dynamics in the house shifted dramatically. Lakia, perhaps realizing that her grandmother was calling the police, entered Debra's bedroom. According to police documents, she was trying to take the phone away, to stop the call before officers arrived. In the struggle, Larkia allegedly struck her grandmother in the head and shoulder. It wasn't necessarily an attempt to seriously hurt her. It might have been desperation, frustration, or panic. But for Debra, sitting on her bed with the phone in her hand, it felt like an attack. Tanisha rushed into the room, seeing her daughter and mother in physical conflict. Her maternal instincts kicked in, and she grabbed Larkia by the hair, trying to pull her away from her grandmother. She was trying to defuse the situation, to separate the two women before someone got seriously hurt. But instead of calming things down, her intervention escalated everything. Suddenly, mother and daughter were engaged in their own physical struggle, falling to the ground at the foot of Debra's bed. Hair was being pulled, arms were flailing, bodies were colliding in a chaotic tangle of emotion and adrenaline. And Debra Greene-Davis, watching this unfold in front of her, made a decision that would haunt her for the rest of her life. She reached for her 9mm handgun. The weapon was within easy reach, a fact that would later raise questions about gun storage and safety in emotionally volatile environments. In that moment of chaos, with her daughter and granddaughter fighting violently in front of her, Debra later told police that she felt threatened. She felt like the situation was spiraling out of control. Without warning, without a verbal threat, without giving anyone a chance to step back and breathe, she raised the gun and fired. The bullet struck Larkia in the back. The room went silent, except for the sound of her body hitting the floor. On the other end of the 911 call, the dispatcher heard the gunshot and knew immediately that everything had changed. What started as a domestic dispute call had become something far more serious. Tanisha screamed. The sound was primal, the kind of anguish that comes from watching your child die in front of you. Debra sat in stunned silence, the gun still in her hand, the phone still connected to emergency services. Larkia Elliott, entrepreneur, influencer, dreamer, daughter, granddaughter, lay dying just outside her grandmother's bedroom door. Within minutes, Buckeye police officers arrived at the scene with lights flashing and sirens wailing. They issued commands over loudspeakers, ordering everyone inside to come out with their hands visible. The neighborhood, typically quiet on a Sunday afternoon, was suddenly filled with the chaos of emergency vehicles and yellow crime scene tape. Tanisha emerged first, her hands raised, visibly shaken and struggling to breathe. Officers detained her immediately, following standard protocol for domestic violence calls. She was later taken to a hospital for precautionary treatment due to shortness of breath brought on by the trauma of what she had witnessed. Inside the house, officers found Larkia unresponsive near the bedroom doorway. Despite attempts at CPR on the front lawn, she was pronounced dead at the scene. The bullet had caused irreversible damage. In another room, they found Debra Greene-Davis sitting calmly with a 9mm handgun nearby. She was compliant, cooperative, and showed no signs of resistance as officers secured the weapon and began their investigation. The initial crime scene was processed with meticulous care. Ballistics would later confirm that the 9mm handgun belonged to Debra, and that it was the weapon used to kill Larkia. The shooting had occurred at close range, and there were no additional injuries found on Debra beyond the reported bruising on her head and shoulder from the initial struggle. But the most damning evidence came from Debra's own mouth. During her formal police interview, she made a series of admissions that would become the foundation of the prosecution's case against her. She admitted to knowingly and intentionally shooting the victim with her handgun. She acknowledged that she had made a conscious decision to use lethal force. But then came the statement that would seal her fate. She told investigators that she never believed her granddaughter was trying to kill or seriously injure her daughter Tanisha. That single admission changed everything. If Debra didn't believe Larkia posed a lethal threat to her mother, then what justified pulling the trigger? What made the use of deadly force reasonable in that moment? The legal implications were immediate and severe. Within 48 hours, Debra Greene-Davis was arrested and charged with second-degree murder. She appeared in court in a wheelchair, quiet and composed, as a judge set her cash bond at $500,000. Prosecutors made it clear that while the shooting occurred during a family dispute, Debra had made a conscious decision to use lethal force despite admitting that she didn't perceive an imminent threat to her daughter's life. In Arizona, second-degree murder is a Class 1 felony that carries a sentence of 10 to 25 years in prison. For a 71-year-old woman, even the minimum sentence could effectively be life imprisonment. The case sent shockwaves through the Buckeye community. Neighbors struggled to comprehend how such violence could occur in their quiet neighborhood. A 70-year-old grandmother shooting and killing her granddaughter? I mean, that doesn't happen in this neighborhood, one resident told reporters. The incident was particularly jarring because it became Buckeye's first homicide of 2024. In a city known for its safety and family-friendly atmosphere, the idea that domestic violence could turn deadly was almost incomprehensible. For Larkia's followers on social media, the news was devastating. Thousands of people who had connected with her content, who had been inspired by her journey, who had been rooting for her success, suddenly learned that the woman they admired was gone. The comment sections of her final posts filled with heartbreak, disbelief, and questions about what went wrong. Her Etsy shop went dark. Her TikTok account became a memorial. Her dreams of a podcast, a jewelry line, and full-time content creation died with her on December 15th. On January 3rd, 2025, Larkia was laid to rest in Detroit, Michigan, the city where her journey began. Her family chose to keep most of the funeral details private, but the service was a reminder of all the potential that had been lost. She was 31 years old, with so much life left to live, so many dreams left to pursue, so many people left to inspire. The legal proceedings continue, with Debra Greene-Davis facing the possibility of spending her remaining years behind bars. The case has raised difficult questions about family dynamics, domestic violence, gun safety, and the pressures that can build within multi-generational households. But perhaps the most tragic aspect of this story is how preventable it feels. This wasn't a case of strangers or enemies. This was a family that loved each other, even when they struggled to live together. These were three women who had shared holidays, celebrations, and countless ordinary moments. The escalation from a typical family argument to deadly violence happened in a matter of minutes. If Debra hadn't had easy access to a firearm, if there had been better conflict resolution resources available, if someone had recognized the warning signs and intervened earlier, Larkia Elliott might still be alive today. Her story serves as a stark reminder that domestic violence doesn't always look like what we expect. It doesn't always involve strangers or obvious predators. Sometimes it happens within families who love each other but lack the tools to manage their conflict safely. If you're reading this and you recognize warning signs in your own family, arguments that are becoming more frequent or more intense, power struggles that feel like they're escalating, living situations that feel increasingly tense, please know that help is available. The National Domestic Violence Hotline can be reached 24/7 at 1-800-799-7233. For families caring for elderly relatives, the Elder Care Locator at 1-800-677-1116 can connect you with local resources. Sometimes the difference between tragedy and survival is simply someone recognizing the warning signs in time. Sometimes it's having the courage to ask for help before it's too late. Sometimes it's creating space and distance when emotions are running too high. Larkia Elliott was a woman who believed in second chances, in healing, in the power of community to lift each other up. Her life was a testament to resilience, creativity, and the pursuit of dreams despite obstacles. She deserved to see those dreams fulfilled. She deserved to grow old, to continue inspiring others, to keep building the life she was working so hard to create. Instead, her story ended in a moment of violence that changed everything for everyone involved. A 71-year-old grandmother will likely spend her final years in prison. A mother lost her daughter in the most traumatic way imaginable. A family was destroyed, a community was shaken, and thousands of followers lost someone who had touched their lives through a screen. This is the story of Larkia Elliott, a rising star whose light was extinguished too soon, in a place that should have been her safest space, by someone who should have been her protector. It's a reminder that our actions have consequences we can never take back, and that in our most heated moments, we must remember what truly matters, the irreplaceable value of human life, and the families we're supposed to protect, not destroy. What are your thoughts on this tragic case? Have you seen warning signs of escalating family tensions in your own life or community? Share your perspective in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more in-depth true crime coverage that honors victims while exploring the complex factors that lead to tragedy.